some breakfast. About finished with breakfast. I already started breakfast. Oh no, I forgot to do push-ups before my live. I never do that. I know. Come on, there's some of you out there that do that. Do push-ups and before you take pictures and go live. I don't do that. I'm pretty skinny. It wouldn't make all that difference anyways. Okay, so today's gonna be a good live. It's gonna be kind of like testimony and my thoughts on martial arts, what martial arts does to someone, how it shapes them, how it shapes their outlook on the world and themselves. The similarities and differences between different martial arts, maybe what some religions think about martial arts, depending on what culture you're in, so on and so forth. Okay, so today we're doing sort of like a British breakfast. And I say that because we have tomatoes. And where is my, there it is. So some of you, remember my live where I was talking about London and my travels to Great Britain. My travels to Great Britain with my friend Josiah Adams and my bandmates at the time, the discarded Justin, Matt, Aisha. When I was in Great Britain, when I was in London, Great Britain, I don't know why I like saying that so much, Great Britain. It's not just Britain, it's Great Britain. England. Okay, so I just made basically some eggs and cheese. Finished, these are completely finished. We're gonna put the eggs and cheese here. Then we're gonna throw some tomatoes in the pan. Gonna fry up these tomatoes. When I was in England, that's kind of a British thing they do, is they fry up some sliced tomatoes with their breakfast. It's good. I was thinking I haven't had, some sliced tomatoes fried up in a while. Should only take a few minutes. And while that's going, I'm going to put a little bit of pepper, and a little bit of salt. Celery salt. Less sodium, healthier. Okay, these tomatoes are cooking quickly. Flip these. Little burnt crispies. So yeah, I went to breakfast many times when I was in London, and I noticed I rather enjoyed the breakfasts in London. I thought they were just, it's good. Pig's blood is a thing. Pig's blood is exactly what it is. It's pig's blood. And I don't know how they make it, but they fry it or something, and it just looks like little kind of burnt sausages or burnt biscuits. And I can't really remember how pig's blood tastes. I don't think it really had too much of a flavor. Not that I can remember, anyways. And also when I was in London, it was a long time ago, so I can't really remember what pig's blood tastes like. But I do remember having pig's blood multiple good. Burnt cheese. That is crazy good. Yeah, but I always remember, being in London and paying whatever 16 or 18 pounds, which is around $24 in American money for a breakfast, and just getting, a couple eggs, some toast, pig's blood, and a couple of sliced tomatoes. And thinking, gosh, this is like a lot of money just for a couple eggs, a slice of tomato, and a slice of toast and pig's blood. And then I was like, well, I am in London. It's not the cheapest city in the world. It's pretty expensive, actually. All right, these are almost done. Taking longer than I thought. I was listening to Chopin last night, and I think it's true. I think classical music does something to the brain, and it just makes you feel more intelligent, makes you feel more reserved, have more, there we go, these are almost done. Yeah, these are done. Just widens your perception. I feel like it gives you a deeper insight. When you listen to classical music, you go through your day with a deeper insight. And it was just a beautiful composition. I'm going to have to do that more. Listen to Chopin, Bach, Mozart. All right, so I'm going to put some celery salt on these tomatoes. Yeah, again, celery salt, less sodium. I've been cooking with avocado oil lately. It's going to be better for your heart, healthier than vegetable oil, and I think it's a richer flavor too. All right. Not the greatest looking thing in the world, fried sliced tomatoes, but definitely a fan of how it tastes. Yeah, not the best looking breakfast, but definitely appropriate. Got these steak knives at Walmart. Walmart? Yeah. Walmart. So, martial arts is different than martial arts. It can be a sport, and I know Taekwondo is a sport. We have Taekwondo in the Olympics. So there is a sport aspect to martial arts nowadays, but it's not really a sport, a team competitive type sport where you have, goalposts or whatever. So I would say martial arts is not for everyone. But at the same time, I think everyone can benefit from martial arts. Damn, that is good. Cheese, eggs, salt, pepper, and fried sliced tomato. So I feel like, in the 70s and even the 80s, martial arts was still sort of taboo. It seemed more or less also as like a spiritual practice. There was a lot more Asian philosophy and Asian culture recognized with martial arts, especially in the West and in America. So people, when they heard about martial arts, they usually thought about the Asian culture and philosophy with the martial arts. Look at that. Eggs, cheese, tomato. Where now a lot of martial arts in America has been more Americanized, and it seems more of like fitness classes or fighting lessons. There's more of a American sport sort of aspect to a lot of martial arts in America now. Oh! Oh! Whoa! That was way better than I thought. That was so good. That is so good. So basic. Just eggs, cheese, celery, salt, pepper, and then the fried tomato on top. Damn. That does kind of remind me of England for some reason. I always remember that. I'm like, man, $30 for a breakfast, and you're giving me some couple slices of tomato, some wheat bread toast, and like one egg. I'm just like, God, I'm a young dude. I got money for this. All the young dudes carry the news. Boogaloo dudes. Open up. Open up. Mmm. Alright. Fucking A. So, one of the really cool things about martial arts in the 60s and 70s and 80s was it presented another way and another discipline from basically religious folklore, mainly Abrahamic faiths in the West. People were kind of like burnt out with that stuff, I mean, a lot of people were raised in whatever, Catholic, whatever type Christian home, and they were kind of sick of hearing about these Abrahamic stories and the sort of boringness of Christianity. And so when they heard about martial arts, it's like it had a sort of an essence, like a magical essence that was religious, but it hit differently, you know. It's like all of a sudden there's, you know, stretching involved. It's just, and this is why, one of the reasons why, and I have this in my notes, there was some negative backlash. Towards martial arts in America, because when people engulf themselves into martial arts, like all of a sudden you don't really need to go to church. Not only do you not need to go to church, you have like a discipline that's not only mental, it's physical. It's kind of never ending. You're seeing results. It's not just based on emotions or belief. It's like practical results. And there's a moral code to martial arts, you know, in karate, taekwondo, kung fu. You're learning a moral, physical, spiritual, and mental discipline that has a lot of aspects that's similar to religion, but it's not religion, and there's a lot more respect within your school, you know, amongst your peers. You know, you have a teacher, and your teacher isn't just saying, like, telling you how it is. He's showing you how it is. He's doing what you're doing. It's a lot less blind faith and a lot more practical awareness. And in America, they noticed when teenagers, children, young adults were enrolled in a martial arts school, their grades went up at school. They seemed less angry. They seemed more focused. They seemed more thoughtful around the house, willing to help, had more self-esteem. Seemed less codependent. So you had all these improvements when people got into martial arts, and you didn't really see any of that in religion. It was more of like dampering people down. That was so good, that tomato. So it seemed like for some people, religion had practically no positive effects. For some people, religion worked, but there's a lot of people that Abrahamic Western religions did nothing for them. And when they got into martial arts, everybody, including themselves, saw so many improvements in their life. More focus, more self-respect, less codependent. Their grades went up in school. Martial arts brings a philosophy and an awareness that people in the West just didn't, in a harmony. And people in the West with Western Christian religions, that's more of a belief system and an ownership mentality, where martial arts is more of an awareness. And it still has a moral code, and it still has philosophy. So again, like going back on topic, you had a lot of people in religion, especially in Christianity and all different Christian sects, that right away demonized Eastern or martial arts. Right away. It was a threat to their numbers. It was a threat to their belief system. So right away, different Christian branches demonized martial arts in the 70s and 80s. But the fact is it helped people with ADHD, people with a lot of energy, people with low self-esteem, people with depression. It helped them so much that the families were like, hey, I know you think these martial arts are demonic or whatever, or evil, or not in line with Christianity. I don't really care, because my kid is doing so much better now. He's running at like 95% potential, and when he was going to church all the time, he was at 60%. And this is why it started seeing like Christian karate. Hold on. You started seeing Christian karate, but it never was real martial arts. Because true martial arts is not Christianity. And a lot of it's older than Christianity in the origins of most martial arts. So when you had like Christian karate and break the blocks of ice in the name of the Lord, you brought that kind of ownership mentality, blind faith, almost that ridiculousness of non-denominational Christianity. They brought that ridiculousness into Christian martial arts. But that was huge. Like American style martial arts was huge. But there was still a lot of martial arts that were actual real Asian martial arts. So before I sit down and we start getting into my story and my testimony with martial arts, I'm a black belt, obviously. No, I'm just kidding. Seriously though, I actually am a black belt. Before we get into my testimony, when it comes to breaking bricks, when it comes to breaking wood, that's actually not, like, I did Taekwondo, and yeah, we did break pieces of wood, and we had, like super thick pieces of wood that were really hard to break even one, and then we had like the little thin ones that the kids would break. There's, the adult size and then kid size. I was taught, and it's not too good to get into breaking bricks, ice, boards of wood, because if you you will build a strong fist, and it will teach you to follow through, and that's the whole point of it, to build your power, your follow through power. But if you get too into that, you will basically get arthritis, and it's really bad for your joints, and it'll give you arthritis at a young age. So with my school, we did break boards and thick boards, and for my black belt testing, I did have to break a brick, a red brick. My ring just messed my punch up. But for the black belt test, we had to break a brick. And when you're older, and say you've done construction and you're an older man, to smash a brick doesn't seem, that difficult. And you put a cloth over it. You put a cloth over the brick, and you strike the brick or hammer fist the brick, whichever one you want to do. A lot of people chose the hammer fist. I just did the straight punch. Bam! And if you follow through, it will break. So we had a break. Well, for my black belt testing, I had to do a multiple directional strike combination. And each strike was 4 thick adult pieces of wood. So it was a lot of thick wood. And you have to be trained how to even hold the wood. So it was all black belts holding the wood. And I had to do a punch, a right punch, break 4 pieces of wood. I had to do, side kick, break 4 pieces of wood, a karate chop. And you really have to follow through and hit these boards of wood quick, or they will not break. And you would see that all the time at testings. And lower belts like red and blue belt, you'd have to maybe do like a 3-strike combination. But the black belt was, at my school, it was real Taekwondo. And the black belt test was long and difficult. And I did my black belt test under Grandmaster Lee in Sunland, California, which is very respectful. That Taekwondo school, Master Lee and Master Park, who was my direct master, they were very respected in real Taekwondo. It wasn't watered down American Taekwondo. It was real Taekwondo. So I remember having difficulties a few belts before. I forget if it was blue belt or red belt. I think it's probably my red belt testing. But they were holding, the 4 pieces of thick adult wood, the boards, and I did the front snap kick. And for whatever reason, and you have to use the balls of your feet to break the wood, and I couldn't get it. And I actually I fractured the 2 toes on both of my feet, breaking the wood. I eventually got it on like the 5th try. After trying both legs, I eventually broke it. It was weird because I had really strong kicks. I had a strong back kick, side kick, but when you're sparring, you don't really kick with the balls of your feet. You're kicking differently. Kicking with this part of your foot, roundhouse kicks, and then when you do your side kick, you're kicking with the blades of the side of your feet. So I was able to front snap kick a bag, but for whatever reason, I was just having difficulty breaking this wood. So eventually I did break the board, got my red belt. And so when I was taking my black belt test, I remember Grandmaster Lee, he was like kind of mentally prepared me. He's like, now Trevor, remember you had a hard time with this front snap kick. And so I was able to break it the first time on the black belt test. So back kick, side kick, front snap kick, punch, knife hand, axe kick. So they would hold 4 pieces of wood and you'd have to do an axe kick, bam, all the way up and down. So for the black belt test, you had, it was like a 6 or 8 strike combination. It was a long time ago when I got my black belt, like 20 years ago. And so you had all these black belts around you holding 4 pieces of wood, and you'd have to, front snap kick, punch, side kick in all different directions. And the very last thing you had to break was a brick. And it was on 2 cinder blocks, and it had a little towel above the brick, and you just had to punch the brick. And what you would do, you would have the brick here, and you'd kind of go like this and kind of get your aim right, and then bam, and it's all about follow through. you don't even have to really be that fast, but you have to hit it hard and you have to go through it. And same with the blocks of wood. If you just snap your punch, you're only going to get through the first or second wood. So you have to go all the way through. And this is the black belt test. So, anyways, doing too much of that, some people get into that and they're breaking bricks and wood all the time. They do that in China, Korea, Japan. People get into that, breaking bricks, wood, blocks of ice. But if you do too much of that, it's going to give you arthritis, and it's really bad for your joints. It's really pointless too. You want to be able to break the brick for your black belt tests and go through the blocks of wood for your belt testings, just so you know the power it takes to break something. But you don't want to be doing that so much to the point where you have, callus on your hands. You're basically some like beast, some like animal. And it's not really that applicable to, meaning somebody could be really good at breaking things and horrible at fighting. It's not going to give you fighting skills is what I'm trying to say. Heat my coffee up. So I Americanized, karate and martial arts. You had, I don't know why I can't get that good sound when you had Americanized karate and taekwondo, they'd be like, everybody, I'm breaking this brick, this blocks of wood for the Lord. With the power of the Holy Spirit, I'm smashing this, just like how St. Michael smashes the devil. So it's, obviously that's ridiculous. But a lot of American martial arts kind of got into that vibe because they didn't want to get into the whole yoga, spiritual side of some martial arts, which a lot of it is harnessing your energy. A lot of it is energy work. Focus work. A lot of it is occultism. If you get really into ninjutsu and karate and stuff, it can seem kind of like dark occult practices. Manipulation, lock picking, poisoning, putting thoughts in people's minds, shadow work, hiding in shadows. There is a dark element to martial arts, and there is ninjutsu clans that actually still exist to this day. There's 2 main ninjutsu clans in Japan, and they still are around today. I don't know if they're connected with the Yakuza or if the Yakuza hires them, but they're still assassin clans to this day, and they'll still kill people. And they train lock picking. They know how to run across leaves without making a sound, hiding in shadows, running on rooftops, like all that kind of dark shit. There is martial arts that specialize in that. I actually trained with a real clan member of a ninjutsu clan from Japan with my buddy down in Fallbrook. And it was some dark shit, and I actually trained with two different, one was that one I'm talking about now was actually a clan member from a ninjutsu clan. And I only trained with him like 5 times or 4 times or whatever. It was like he was training us. It was not a normal martial arts school. We were running on leash without making sound. We had lock picking kits. We were learning all this like mental shit, the mental side of fighting, not just the physical abilities, using whatever is around as a weapon, hot coffee, throwing hot coffee in somebody's face, like just getting the edge in the fight any way you can is ninjutsu. It's adaptive combat. Meaning if you gotta fucking grab some dude's fucking throat or take his eye out, then you'll do that. And when it comes to ninjutsu training. And a lot of things were like in threes. I noticed, like, we had these cinder blocks and we would do these low leg kicks and everything was 3. 1, 2, 3, and we had to kick the cinder block 3 times. You know, a lot of this ninjutsu training, every time you did a punch, it was 3 punches. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Everything was 3 with this guy. And it gets, and there's a spiritual philosophy behind it. So this is what Christians were worried about. Is you enroll your kid into martial arts and he fucking karate chops his math teacher and breaks a jugular. Ja, you know? Thinking like, damn, my kid would have never, known to do that. And you taught my kid how to fucking hit someone in the back of the head with a chair in a ninjutsu attack, It's so... This is why you had a lot of Christian parents like being very worried and concerned about their kids doing martial arts. Like, what are you going to be teaching my kid? Like, your kid belongs to me now, he's my student, that was a fear. But in reality, like earlier in the video, I said, usually just grades went up, discipline went up, respect went up, energy went up, ADHD went down, a higher awareness. It was literally like all positives. And sometimes there were cases though where, even in my Taekwondo schools and stuff, we would teach, teenagers how to throw a back kick, and they would go to high school or to junior high and they would back kick some kid and knock the air out of them, and they would get in trouble, and we'd have to talk to them like, hey, you're not supposed to use this martial arts outside of, it's martial arts training, and fighting is only supposed to be conducted in this gym. It's dangerous. Not everybody out there is a martial art just because a martial artist, just because not everybody out there is a martial artist. So just because somebody offends you or disrespects you, you're not supposed to walk up and roundhouse kick them right in the fucking head and knock their ass out. That's disrespectful. We always taught our students to walk away from fights. It doesn't matter if you're in the right or they're in the right, or it doesn't matter what's going on. Always walk away, and if you need, run away from a fight. It's not worth it. Do the right thing. Always try to verbally talk it out instead of getting into a physical altercation. And this is what we taught our kids. We taught our kids to walk away, run away from a fight at all costs. But that didn't always happen, because sometimes our students would come back and they would have black eyes and be like, oh, I fought 5 dudes after school, or I was at the park playing basketball and some dude was talking to my girlfriend and we got in a fist fight. And, we would always, we would punish our students, and we'd make them do push-ups, and we'd make them, lean against the wall in the squat and do, a 3-minute whatever punishment. Or they'd be demoted if they were teaching a stretching class. If they were a junior instructor and they're out fighting, they would be demoted. So there was consequences for if our students did get in combat. But sometimes with fights, we taught our students always walk away, run away from a fight. But if your back's against the wall and there's nowhere to go and you're being attacked, to absolutely use your Taekwondo to defend yourself. So yeah, there was times where you just, you had to fight, and you had to fight, and you're glad that you were training, basically. Doing a lot of martial arts, I found out that there's a lot of people out there that think they could fight. Honest to God, they think they got that miracle punch, like they're going to throw that miracle right hook because they beat up their friend or their brother. They were in one fight like 3 years ago, and they got the upper hand in that fight, and so in their mind, they're just convinced that they're like this super boxer. And a lot of these guys always get their asses kicked by someone that's training in martial arts every day, They're disciplined martial artists. They're a black belt. They're constantly sparring. They're going to tournaments. And they go against some guy that got in one fight 3 years ago. And they think they got this miracle punch, and they always get their ass kicked by someone that is putting in the work. Martial arts is great because, honestly, I think I've walked by maybe 2 people in the last 10 years that I think could kick my ass, where I just know this guy could kick my ass. But more often than not, when I'm around anybody, I'm not saying I could beat them in a fight, but I know that I would be confident enough to throw down with anybody at any time, anywhere, because I spent so many years doing Taekwondo and Muay Thai kickboxing, and I've been in enough fights that I'm completely comfortable throwing hands, kicks, knees. I'm absolutely comfortable. I don't have any anxiety about that. And you know what? That took years to achieve. That took years, because even as a black belt in Taekwondo, a black belt, an instructor, I would be terrified going to do a Taekwondo tournament, to the point where I wouldn't even be able to really kick or do anything. I'd be in a defensive, almost like a frozen state. And then after doing and not all tournaments were like that. Some tournaments I felt good and I did well and would win medals. But it was really hard to mentally control my emotions in combat. Because there's a lot of pride and ego that goes into that. I would see dudes at Taekwondo tournaments that they would lose and they would be crying, not because of the physical pain, but because they thought for sure they were going to beat this dude, and they lost, and they would cry because of the pride and the ego. You thought for sure you were going to win, but you didn't. You lost, and now you're crying, not because of the physical pain, but because of ego. And so it took years to be able to mentally overcome that. And honestly, Muay Thai kickboxing made me into a complete fighter. Before Muay Thai kickboxing, yeah, I had a good back kick and a good roundhouse kick. But Muay Thai kickboxing made me mentally prepared to fight anybody at any time. It takes 5 years to make a fighter. It takes 5 years to make a fighter that is comfortable fighting anybody, anywhere, anytime. It takes 5 years of Muay Thai kickboxing. Not going to say I'd win, but I'm saying I'm comfortable and not scared, with zero anxiety. And it took decades to get to that place. And I'm 41 now. So, but anyways, there's been 2 guys I've walked by in the last 15 years where from all the martial arts I've done, I know that I wouldn't even fight them. And believe me, I'll fight anybody. But one dude, I swear to God, I was in Claremont, and this dude was like this tall. He was Chinese, and he was like 7'3", and just his muscle tone and how he walked, I'm like, this guy's a motherfucking 9th degree black belt. I just knew he could kick my fucking ass, and I don't really get that feeling a lot ever from walking by anybody. But that guy was one guy. I was like, this guy could kick my fucking ass. I just know it. But you will learn intuition in martial arts. You'll learn yourself. You'll be able to read people's minds and understand energies doing martial arts. You'll be able to know when someone's around your house without even being able to see them. You will be able to, you get a lot of insight doing martial arts. You get a lot of insights doing martial arts that you do not get lifting weights. You could lift weights until you look like Arnold Schwarzenegger in the 80s. But a lot of these talents that I'm talking about, you won't get going to the gym. You just can't. And a lot of this has to do with stretching. Stretching, I know stretching has been feminized in America, but stretching is incredible. People have been doing it for 7,000 years, for a reason. If it didn't work, people wouldn't do it. A lot of stretching came from India, and a lot of Taekwondo stretches, and in martial arts, a lot of those stretches are yoga stretches. They just don't have the name or the spiritual meaning attached to it, but you still get a lot of the benefits from it. So I'm going to sit down. I'm going to finish up my live. So martial arts has been a big part of my life, just like music has. There's a lot to talk about. There's a lot to go over with martial arts. And you can tell a lot. You can tell a lot by fighting someone. You could tell a lot about somebody when you fight them. How they fight is going to be how they operate at work. And there's all different characteristics that are shown when someone's fighting. How someone's fight is going to be how they debate, how they work, how they treat people. You have some people that are defensive fighters. They're backpedaling. They're cautious. But when they have their opportunity, they throw that left hook and they'll fucking knock someone out. That's how they're going to be in a relationship at work. They're going to seem lazy. They're going to seem like they're not doing much. They're going to seem timid. They're going to seem not really like they're moving forward a lot and doing a lot in work, but they're not giving up. And all of a sudden there's going to be weeks where they're working 20 hours a day and they're doing shit when it counts more than just looking busy, looking aggressive. You're going to look aggressive in a fight. You're going to look like you're winning, and you're going to get fucking knocked out with an uppercut or a knee from someone that is more aware. So this is the kind of things you learn in martial arts. And there's a lot of things in martial arts that have been adopted by the police force and the occult. There's a lot of knowledge and there's a lot of wisdom that a lot of the deception and a lot of, what you reveal, what you don't reveal, all of this stuff you learn in martial arts, and a lot of it translates and crosses over to occult. Colors mean things. Your body language means things. Being focused on your own energy. Harness your own energy. Don't play someone else's game. When you're fighting, if you fight someone else's fight, you're likely to get hurt. You have to fight your own fight. You have to know your distance, boundaries. All this stuff you learn in the occult, you're learning in martial arts. And this is another reason why some religions are threatened by martial arts, because people understand they could harness their own energy and have their own boundaries, and they don't need to go to church at all. And their life's better for it. And this is what pastors and religious leaders were so worried about in the 70s and 80s in all different religions, is this person is going to empower themselves to the point where they're no longer going to be a member of our community. And if they're around, they're going to lead other people away from our way of faith. People will be like, man, this guy's walking confident. This guy doesn't seem so desperate. He's not people pleasing. He's a completely different man or woman. He's a completely different person. They're a completely different person doing this Eastern philosophy, Eastern martial arts, Kung Fu, completely immerse themselves in Kung Fu or Japanese karate, Shogun karate. All of a sudden, their religion doesn't look that important anymore. I'm going to heat my coffee up again. I'm going to wrap this up. I might go into a little bit of my testimony for the last 10 minutes. I'm going to keep this live at an hour. I am still doing vocals on All Things Shall Pass. I don't know if I'm going to do vocals today, but I want to at least make time for it if I get in the vibe. You're always going to have haters. A martial artist will always have haters. Just like same with occultism, Freemasonry. Anything you get into, you're going to have people that clown on you and make fun of you and call it stupid and all sorts of things. And the real reason is they're worried that you're learning shit that they don't know, and that scares them, and that's why they make fun of it. They're trying to change the perception. They're trying to make it a joke, like what you're doing, because deep down inside, they're scared that you're improving your life and you're learning shit that they don't know, and you're demonstrating discipline that they're not willing to do because they're comfortable being in a lower consciousness. And so what happens? They demonstrate a lower consciousness by clowning around and joking around. Martial arts will teach you respect of other cultures. You will become more open-minded doing martial arts. And this is another thing a lot of religions are worried about. You'll become more open-minded. You'll become more universal. You'll start seeing the similarities more often than the differences because you're becoming more yourself. You're looking inside instead of outside. And so this is what worries a lot of people that have ownership complex, a lot of people that are in belief systems and not proven systems, pitches, concepts, protests, movements, beehive type, you're breaking away from, that group conscious. And that's what martial arts empowers you through discipline and humility and respect to break through religious group conscious, political group conscious. They say a weak man joins a gang, weak man follows the herd. There's power in numbers, though. Respect that. That's another thing we learned in martial arts is I was trained how to fight five, 6, 7 people at once. I know how to do things, and I know what to do, how to handle myself in a fight when I'm fighting 7, 8 men at one time. So yeah, I started with just a little bit on my story. I started with Taekwondo. I was so into punk rock. Like, I had all these piercings when I was, 13, 14 years old, lip piercings, all like my ear. I was all punk rock. I was fully punk rock, hanging out at Chain Reaction, drinking tall cans, going to Knott's Berry Farm, like punk rock attitude. I had my armor on, my leather jacket, my combat boots. I was on the street, I was running and gunning, as they say, but without guns, just I was running amok. And I was like not really into sports. I did a lot of sports as a kid. Played soccer for years, competitive soccer. So I did sports, I did theater. I did things that involved teams and groups of people. But as a teenager, I was just like so into punk rock. I wasn't doing any sports. I wasn't doing theater. I wasn't doing commercials. I wasn't doing print work. I wasn't doing any of that shit. I didn't want to do any of that. Fuck the system. Like fuck corporations. I'm not playing along with this shit. I had that attitude already at 14 years old. And so I had a foot-long dual purple mohawk when I was like 13 years old. I was going that way. And so my mom was like, okay, this is getting crazy. Like you have to do something. I don't fucking care what it is. She didn't say fucking, but she's like, I don't care what it is. You have to like do something, like get involved. I don't care, a low impact sport or whatever, like join a fucking chess club. I don't know. Just get into something. And I was like, well, I like martial arts. I've been renting martial art movies at Blockbuster since I was a child. You know, I love ninja movies. I love martial arts, samurais. I love martial arts. I love the culture, the philosophy, the magic. You know, I love the discipline. I love martial arts 100%. And she's like, okay, let's get you into karate or something. Okay, well, I landed in a taekwondo school because it was right there, you know, and so I wanted to do karate. And then they're like, no, you know, old Korean master, my first master up until my orange belt, this old Korean dude, he's like, oh, taekwondo, good. Taekwondo better than karate, you know, learn, kick, you know, fast, hard kick. Taekwondo, very good. Olympic. Karate, no Olympics. You know, Taekwondo, Olympic. Taekwondo make better fighter. You know, karate, one hit, they stop fight. Taekwondo, you keep going. You keep going. You keep moving. You know, so anyways, and this guy was part of those religions that they're worried about in Christianity. Like he had this book, and his religion was this old Korean religion that had something to do with the four directions and the four seasons. So like this whole book was somehow wrapped around the north, east, southwest, and the four different seasons. And he was trying to explain it to me, but he had such minimum English. He could barely speak English. So I couldn't, you know, understand anything he was saying at all. But this guy had abilities. He was in his, I don't know, late 70s or early 80s. He was old. And he was able to sidekick a heavy bag, and that heavy bag would boom hit the ceiling. The heavy bag. He would sidekick a heavy bag that would hit the ceiling, and he was in his late 70s. He was, I don't know, 6th or 7th degree black belt. And so he taught me the basics. He taught me the basic 4 kicks in Taekwondo: front snap kick, side kick, axe kick, and back kick, or roundhouse kick. Those are the 4 basic kicks in Taekwondo: front snap kick, roundhouse kick, turning kick, hammer kick or axe kick, and then side kick. And then you start, advanced kicks would be like spinning hook kick, tornado kick, back kick, jumping back kick, flying side kick, stepping axe kick, stepping hammer kick. You know, you start learning combinations and advanced versions of these kicks. And then eventually when you get on the sparring team, you learn the roundhouse kick, but how you do a roundhouse kick in combat, which is completely different than how you do a roundhouse kick in school training. Like there's traditional form for kicks, and then there's sparring form for kicks, and it's completely different. And then when I got into Muay Thai kickboxing, I had to relearn how to do the roundhouse kick. You know, in Taekwondo, you snap kick here, which is a whipper. You know, it hurts bad. Knock someone out. Knock the air out of someone. Right there, you snap kick here. But when I did Muay Thai kickboxing, I had to relearn how to kick. And then all of a sudden, I'm kicking here. And I'm swinging my leg like a baseball bat instead of like a ball and chain. Different types of kicks. And I've learned that there's, in different scenarios, depending on who you're fighting, what's going on in the fight at that particular moment, there's going to be times you want to throw that snap kick. There's going to be times you want to throw that Thai kick. And cross training, you know, learning different ways and different styles of kicking is definitely been beneficial. Absolutely. So yeah, same with the back kick. There's the back kick, traditional form back kick. Then there's the sparring back kick. So I'm going to wrap it up. It's been an hour, but what I will do is next time I go live, I'm going to break down sparring roundhouse kick, traditional form roundhouse kick. Sparring side kick, form side kick for your pumse, which is called the Korean word for form. So in Japan, it's called a kata. In Korea, it's called pumse. So I'm going to break down the different types of kicks there are. I'll do that maybe on my next live. for sure. But let's see what the notes. What's the notes say? So just to wrap it up, if you're Christian, non-denominational, I guess pray about it. Pray what martial arts to do. Pray about what school to go to. And if you're Catholic or Eastern Orthodox, ask your priest, should I do martial arts? What martial arts should I do? And he should maybe give you some direction. He might have some insight. Maybe jiu-jitsu is going to be more beneficial to you, or maybe, kickboxing. And just think about who you train under, where you train. There's different schools that have completely different agendas. Some are there just to make money. Some are, teaching you how to fight. Some are more into like philosophy. Karate's different than Taekwondo. It's going to take a lot longer to get your black belt in karate, way longer. Taekwondo, you should get your black belt in 2 to 3 years. Karate, it's going to be 10 to 12 years. Taekwondo is going to have more of an Olympic kind of more fitness, like more athletic kind of fitness vibe, as well as the structured martial art. And then karate, it's going to be, when I first started doing karate when I was a kid, because I took karate multiple times when I was a kid. That's why I was going to go back into karate when I was a teenager. I went to this traditional karate school where we had to sit in like a karate way of sitting, and we had to learn philosophy and learn about basic karate philosophy and basic karate moves. We were in the book just for months before we did anything, and it was boring. I was like, this is ridiculous. So then I got into American karate. My dojo's instructors, he's got like American flag karate pants on, and right away he's like, here's a staff, and I got the staff going, and he's like showing me how to side kick. It was like action from day one. We're learning weapons and striking right away. So there's going to be different schools. Be kind of careful of people that are like private martial art instructors, because I've done some of that training with like ninjutsu people that they're kind of weird. You wonder like what they do for a living. They're dude, I've trained under 2 dudes that were like, you were wondering if they were like running from the law. Just really like they would say some like unusual things, but I learned a lot from them though, nonetheless. Like I learned a lot about energy and about like that dark side of martial arts. And so, we knew this one dude too, like at our Taekwondo school. This guy was like a model, he was in 80s action movies. He was a model, and he was a UFC fighter back in early UFC, like in the late 80s, and like early cage fighting in the 90s. And this guy comes in our Taekwondo studio, and he's got the ninja, like the turtle, ninja shoes, and he's got like arm things, the spikes, and he's got like a mask on and shit, and he's just all, and he comes into our Taekwondo studio, and we're all like in our uniforms and our belts and shit, just like, oh man, Brian McKinney, that's his name, and this guy's like perfect looking dude, just looks like a model. He's like this Italian dude, and he comes in all these ninja clothes, and right away he's talking to the master, and he's like, well, what if someone is God, what's that drug that makes people, what's that drug that makes people weather any kind of pain, or taser or anything? What's that called again? That's going to drive me crazy, man. What is that? What is that drug that makes people go super crazy, where they'll be like running at cops naked and shit? Anyways, I forget the name of that drug, but he's like, what if, because we were doing hop keto that night, we're doing like joint manipulation and like learning like wrist locks and different, someone puts your hand on your shirt and, that kind of stuff. So we're learning all of that. And he was like, well, what if someone is on this super drug? You're not going to be able to break their grip. You're going to have to, hit them in the throat, take their knee out. None of this shit's going to work, basically. You're not going to be able to use hand strength on some oh dude, that's gonna drive me crazy. What is that drug called? What is that drug called? It was the 90s. It was a drug people took in the 90s. It just made them fucking crazy. That's gonna fucking drive me. I'm gonna Google that. That's gonna drive me crazy. Anyways, he was talking about the master. He's like, what if you fight somebody on that I forget the name of that. What was that drug called that made people crazy? They'd like run at cops, made them impossible to. It's not acid or it's not bath salt. It's none of that. I forget. Anyways, yeah, he. Oh man, we'd party with that dude. That guy eventually, even though he had a history in action movies, modeling, cage fighting, he eventually drank coolant for a car. Drank a couple bottles of coolant, and then the police came and they tried to restrain him. And he's like, I'm not. He said something to the cops like he's not going down without breaking a few fingers or something, and basically not compliant. And so they had to taser him. So between the coolant and the taser, like the combination of those two, he died. Died in the hospital. It's really sad. He was suicidal. A lot of his life, even though he's seemed like pretty like girls would just throw themselves at him, literally. He's more of my buddy's buddy, but they would go out. I was young, I was still a teenager, so I couldn't go to clubs or bars, but I was part of the time I was an instructor at the school. And so anyways, they would go to like different clubs and stuff, and girls would just walk up to him and just, here's my number. They would totally hit on him. He was a good looking guy. I mean, he was in perfect physical shape, and he was good at martial arts. But he had that kind of like that dark side, like ninjutsu kind of vibe to him. He's good at martial arts, but there was like kind of something off with him. But I remember we had the heavy bag at my buddy's house, and well, it was one of those. It wasn't a heavy bag. It was one of those ones that had water at the bottom. So it was like water at the bottom, and you had to hit it really hard to knock it over, basically. But you can knock it over if you hit hard. So he was able to throw a punch and knock it over. And then I showed him my back kick, and he was like, "Dude, that's an incredible back kick." He's like, I think he said that back kick could fuck me up. This guy's a cage fighter. And he's like, if you landed that back kick, he's like, I'd go down. And I was like, I know you'd go down, because everybody goes down when they get hit by my back kick. It doesn't matter how fucking big you are. The amount of force and torque and accuracy and speed I have in my back kick, it doesn't matter how big you are, you're going down. I've knocked out all state wrestlers with my back kick. I've knocked everybody goes down. That was like, you couldn't take, you get hit by my back kick, you might not go down that second, but you're not gonna be able to breathe. And like 2-3 seconds later, you're gonna go down. You're gonna get hit by the back kick, and you're gonna be like, still thinking you're in the game, and then you go, and then you're gonna realize you can't fucking breathe, and then you will go down every single time. All people. So I don't know. I think martial arts are good. I think, honestly, I don't even think I'd be alive if it wasn't for martial arts. I don't think I'd be alive if it wasn't for martial arts. I think martial arts brought me through the abuse, the alcohol, the drugs. I think I would have died if I didn't have that extreme martial arts that I did growing up. Black belt. Black belt means indomitable spirit. That's what it means. It means having an indomitable spirit. That's literally what black belt means in Taekwondo. Each belt means something, and it gets spiritual, earth, green, it has to do with earth and stuff and growing. Red is danger. violence. You know, red is attack, danger, violence. That's what red belt means. Meaning combat ready. You know some shit. Black belt's more than being dangerous and attacking and being combat ready. Black belt's being indomitable, being a fucking foundation in your life and others, you know, being a stronghold, knowing that you don't have to fight or engage, and knowing that you have control over your energy. You know, black belt is more than red belt. So yeah, I got my black belt. You know, when I went to South Korea and taught Taekwondo and English, I taught Taekwondo and English in South Korea. I was technically, I forget what it was called in Korean. It's been a long time, but it was half red and half black. You get your red belt, and then you get the half red and half black belt, which is kind of like a black belt. You know, it's basically, you have to be old enough to be a black belt. So if you're, I think, like under 13 years old or something, you could only get to the red and black. You have to actually meet age qualifications to actually get a full black belt. And so I remember I was, you know, young, 15, 16. I was that half red, half black belt for like a while. So when I went to South Korea, they're like, but you're an instructor. You have to be like at least a black belt, dude, like at least a first degree black belt. So they're like, we're just going to give you a black belt because you're teaching for our school. We have to have a black belt instructor. So, you know, being a red and black belt, it was basically there already. So they like honored me with the black belt so I could teach. And then when I moved back, I actually took my legitimate black belt test, which was a long, rigorous test, arduous, what's that word? Anyways, arduous journey. It was a long test, and got like my actual black belt certificate, you know, like complete 100% full black belt, passed the test. That was an incredible black belt test. Really good. And when you become a black belt, it's not only do you have to do the physical, like the forms, the poomsae, and you have to break all of the boards of wood. You have to break the brick. You have to do each form, white, yellow. You have to complete all the forms. So you know, you're not just doing your black belt form, which is in Taekwondo, really the black belt form is like the most complicated form. Or in karate, they're pretty kind of advanced, where all the belts up are kind of like leading to the black belt form in Taekwondo. So you do all the belt forms, and then you do your black belt form, break the boards, and you have to demonstrate that you're proficient in all the kicks. You have to do sparring. You have to fight someone. In South Korea, when you do your black belt test, you have to fight someone with no pads. You can't have any chest protector, any shin pads. You have to go full combat, and you have to fight another black belt with no pads. That's part of the black belt test. But in America, you always use, you know, head protector, mouthpiece. You know, you always have your pads. But yeah, I did the black belt, passed the black belt test. You know, it's probably like one of the only things in life that I completed, you know, thoroughly and fully was, you know, getting my black belt with the certificate and everything. So, and once you have the black belt, again, black belt means indomitable spirit. You always are a black belt, meaning I don't need to walk around with the uniform on and wear a black belt. I'm a black belt, legitimately. You know, it's like being a police officer. You don't have to be in uniform or have a badge. You're a fucking cop all the time. Same with the doctor. You took an oath. When you're a doctor, you are under oath to be a doctor. If you're a nurse, if you're a Freemason, you don't have to have your apron on, and you don't have to be in a lodge. You're a Freemason everywhere you go, whether you look like one or not, or dress like one. Same with Taekwondo. Same with karate. All martial arts. If you're a black belt, you're a black belt forever, no matter what. You don't need to show anybody your certificate. You don't need to fight anybody. You don't need to fight anybody. You don't need to explain yourself. You don't need to prove yourself. If you're a black belt, you're a fucking black belt. A lot of being a black belt is internal, you know, mindset, spirit and mindset. Yeah, it's, you know, some something I'm proud of, becoming a black belt the right way through a school that was like a real Taekwondo school, from a group of masters that were legitimate masters. And I learned so much doing Taekwondo for years. I learned so much, not just about form and kicking, but about life. Just it's something you could always fall back on. I mean, it doesn't matter what happens in life or where life goes or whatever. You could always take time to do some stretching, do some breathing work, throw some kicks, go for a jog. You could always do a little Taekwondo. It doesn't matter if you're 85 years old. You could do a little Taekwondo. It's always something you could do. You don't need anything else, basically. Taekwondo is a way of life. Taekwondo is life for the person that is a black belt. Taekwondo is life. A lot of times religion creates codependency and speculative belief systems, where martial arts creates like self-efficiency. It's you're getting tools, so to speak, that transcend, culture in politics. You're getting something deeper, and this is why sometimes religions don't want you to get into martial arts, because you'll find out that you really don't need religions, and you just need basically martial arts. So anyways, that's it. That whole entire live, I had the camera on me. Usually I have it flipped over so I can't see any comments, but I don't think anybody commented. So I'm starting to get back into martial arts. I've done enough martial arts where I don't need to enroll into a school or a community. I've done enough martial arts where I know how to train on my own. And of course, it is good to be part of a community in a school and be involved in helping others and learning more from, older, experienced, higher ranking masters. It's always a good thing, but I honestly just don't have the money or the time to get to enroll in a martial arts school. But again, I'm a black belt. I've done so much Muay Thai kickboxing. I've done so much training under so many different masters, and that I could easily train myself and work out easily on my own and get there again, or not get there again, but just, get fit again. So yeah, I've been going for jogs lately. That's so important. Yeah, running, getting your cardio up. I'll be going for a jog again today. But yeah, I just want to say martial arts is not for everyone. Oh, that's what I wanted to get into. A lot of people in the 80s and 90s, they did sports. For most people, you're going to want to do basketball, or if you're older, low impact sports like golfing, golfing, tennis, basketball, there's, water skiing. There's a lot of stuff to do that gets the dopamines going, the endorphins. There's a lot of sports to do, whether professionally or as a hobby. And it'll get you there, get you to that positive mindset. But for some people, martial arts is, like I said, a way of life. It's not for everyone, but for some people, martial arts is going to be the only thing that gets you there. So yeah, anyways, I think that's all I got. I will be doing probably 2 or 3 more episodes on martial arts, and next time I'm going to be going over the differences between Taekwondo kicks, Muay Thai kickboxing kicks, forms, stretchings, just some basic stuff basic concept stuff that you just don't know until somebody tells you. And then when somebody tells you, the light goes on and you're like, oh, that's kind of cool. You know, how to stretch, how to punch, all that stuff. You know, basic stuff that when someone tells you, someone shows you, like, oh, that actually makes sense. I never thought of that. A lot of stuff you learn in the beginning of your martial art process, the journey of becoming a martial artist. So anyways, talking about this has given me a lot of great encouragement to do some training and to, you know, go for a jog. And then for me, you know, martial arts, it's like praying, you know. That's how I pray, is I do martial arts. You know, everybody's different, you know, but I don't really go to church ever. I don't really get anything out of it. I get healing, you know, when I go to Orthodox liturgy, I get physical healing, but it's just, what are you going to do? You're healed up and then just that's it. You know, I have to do something after I get healed up, and that's recording music, martial arts. Most samurais, most warriors, they always have an artistic expression as well. Like a lot of samurais, they were painters, they were musicians, bonsai. You have to have something. You can't just do martial arts all the time. You got to get into dance, painting, play an instrument, content creating, acting, so something else. Some artistic expression has to be the counterpart to martial arts. You always got to do something also. You do your martial arts and also do an artistic expression, and then you can do, you know, whatever work and things you need to do to take care of your life. You know, so you have three different things. You have work, martial arts, and artistic hobbies. And that's, you know, excellent. So anyways, that was a good live. I like talking about martial arts. We're going to do that more. All right, you guys have a good one.